Hello, my name is Mike. In this video, I'm going to be providing an overview of HyperGrade. HyperGrade is a website that helps you manage homework in your computer programming courses. It automates all of your assignments, so you can have automated test cases and you can have questions that slowly get more complicated to kind of ease the student into more complex ideas. In this video, we're going to be making an assignment and we're going to be making test cases and we're going to be seeing what the student experiences when they log into the system and complete their homework. So once you register for a teacher account, you're going to be presented with this screen here. I'm going to click on Create Course. And we're going to see a course that has no assignments, no students, and no grades. Let's click on Create Assignment here. On the screen, you have the ability to upload whatever code that you have. So the idea is you would have some sort of assignment for your students, and you would have the solution to that assignment in one of our supported languages: C, C++, C#, Java, Python. All these are going to be just fine. You would upload that code here, and you would create some test cases down below. I'm going to use one of the pre-built questions though. I'm going to click on the Java button down here. It's going to provide a nice example for us. HyperGrade, you can make very simple or very complex homework assignments and everything in between. You can make simple calculators, or you can have object-oriented assignments, you can have linked list assignments, data structures, and so on. And you can test a variety of things. And so here we have created a little calculator. All it does is it asks the user for two inputs, two numbers, and it'll show the sum to that user. Before we go any further, I'm going to show what the student sees. So if you click on the View as Student, here's going to be kind of a nice version of the assignment that you could send out to your students. And we can see that the program was run with three sets of inputs. This program, all it does is it asks for two numbers. Those numbers are going to be entered in by HyperGrade, and it'll show the sum to the user. Your student needs to write code that produces this same experience. The student's code doesn't need to match your code. That's not the point. The point is the experience needs to be the same. We need to have the same output here, the same questions and the same inputs and the same math and so on. And once the student can demonstrate that, then HyperGrade will come up with a recommended grade that you can then ultimately approve. I'm going to show you that very, very soon. Okay, so we have our assignment here. You can, of course, add your question text as needed. And then down below, we have the more interesting test cases. In HyperGrade, each test case represents a single run of the program. You can have as many test cases as you want. You can test all kinds of various things. You can have different types of input. You can have command line arguments. You can test for file I/O. You can test for certain methods being implemented. Pretty much everything is going to be supported here in HyperGrade. In this video, though, we're going to keep it simple. Let's just change the input to this program, and instead of adding up -3 and 40, let's add up the numbers, 5 and 6, for example. Once you make a change here, you can click on Run. Wait for a moment, and then we can see the result up on the screen here. Here it is. We see the program was ran with 5 and 6 being entered, and we see a sum of 11. 5 plus 6, of course, is going to be 11. In HyperGrade, test cases are run sequentially. They're run right after each other. So I click on the Run, and it's going to execute test case 1, 2, and then 3. This is nice because you can have the result of test case 1 be fed into the input of test case 2. Specifically, if you have a program that writes a file out, you can have that file being read on the second test case. Test cases are run sequentially. Okay, so now we have a nice assignment ready to go. What happens now? Well, how do we get students into our course so they can complete our assignment? Well, let me show you what that process looks like. It's pretty simple. In the breadcrumb list up here, I'm going to click on the course that we just created. And now we can see a nice overview of our assignments. We can see the number of students that are enrolled, 0. Then we can see our grade panel, and then we can see our course code. What you would do is you would send the link, hypergrade.com, over to your student, and you would say, here's the course code. So once the student registers, they would plug in this course code, and now they can view your assignments. Now, let me show you what the student actually sees, okay? If you go back to your dashboard, your student's going to register. They're going to type in this course code here. And then what they're going to see is the following. I'm going to click on the student view. Here's what they see. This is going to be the student dashboard. This student is enrolled in your course. And now they can begin completing the assignments. Now, in a real course, you would have a whole bunch of assignments. You'd have 10, 15, 20, 30 assignments, whatever. And each of those assignments would have several questions. One of my recommendations here is to have assignments that slowly get more complicated over time. So if you have one problem set, that problem set could have maybe 15 questions. And if the last question in there is something very complex, like, determine if a credit card is going to be valid, or make a linked list that has all kinds of different variations, the first question in that assignment could be like a simple hello world, display something up on the screen. And then over the course of maybe 5 or 10 questions, you'd work your way up to something that's going to be much more complicated. Here, though, we just have one assignment, one question. Let's see what the student sees. I'm going to click on question 1 here. Notice it's going to be red because we haven't completed it yet. The student sees an interface that kind of looks like the teacher interface. They have a box where they're going to be uploading their code, and they see what the requirements are here. Now, what I have is some code here, and this code is actually the solution to the assignment. If I submitted it, you would see the correct output here. What I would like to do, though, is mess up this code and show you what happens when the student submits code that doesn't meet your requirements. So I'm going to open up this code here. I'm using Sublime Text Editor, but really any editor is going to be just fine. You can have VS Code or WebStorm or Notepad++ or just plain vanilla Notepad. All that's going to be just fine. So here we have our solution. This is going to be in Java, but hopefully it's still going to be readable to you. All this code does is it connects to your keyboard. It asks the user for 2 numbers. It does the sum, and it shows the result to the user. We're going to mess up this code, though. I'm going to put a lowercase e in here. We're going to have a bunch of random exclamation points. We're going to maybe misspell the word second, And maybe we can even multiply instead of add. I'm going to save this. And then we can submit it to HyperGrade and see what happens. Okay, so now, pretend you're a student. We have some code. We think it's perfect. We think it's flawless. We're going to submit it. And test case is going to run it through. HyperGrade is going to run it through all 3 test cases. And we're going to see a little report that shows how our code output compares to our teacher's output. Here we have some problems, right? We have lots of red marks in here. Everything looks a little bit scary. But if you click on the show what's missing, you can toggle back and forth and make it obvious as to what's going to be missing in this code here. And so if I look at the first line, clearly I have some incorrect exclamation points, and then I have my lowercase e and uppercase e problem. So I also have the wrong sum, and then this is going to be spelled wrong, and so on. So let me make some fixes and see what the student experiences. So let me eliminate those exclamation points. Let me fix the word second in there. I'm going to, on purpose, forget the uppercase E and then this for the time being, but let me save this and resubmit it and see what happens. If your student submits a file name that's already in HyperGrade, HyperGrade is smart enough to just automatically delete the old one and replace it with the new one. So now, down here, we have a much more reasonable run of our code. We only have a few problems. If I click on Show What's Missing, I can clearly see that my output number is going to be wrong, and my letter E is going to be the wrong uppercase, lowercase. So if I go back here, and I fix these problems, I'm going to save it. We can then resubmit and see what's going to happen. And resubmit. We'll wait for a moment. And once we have corrected code, we have this nice satisfying question complete banner that pops up on the screen. Notice we have 3 of 3 test cases being passed. The student can then go back to their dashboard and they can see that this little bar turns green. If they had failed test cases, then this bar would be yellow to indicate that they have submitted something, but it doesn't pass all of the required test cases. So now as a student, I can see that's going to be passed. I can see my grades over here. Now in HyperGrade, the teacher will approve recommended scores. HyperGrade will come up with a recommended score based on the number of test cases that were passed, and then you as the teacher can approve or override that as needed. Once you do that approval process, those grades will now become available to your student. Students can also change some settings, real name, password, and some other interesting things. And then you as a teacher can go to the grading center and view this work. I'm going to show you that approval process right now. So I'm going to click on the Leave Student View button. Go back here. And if I go back to my dashboard, let me actually show you something. We have a new student that got created. This is a test student, of course, but when your real students enroll, this number is going to increase to whatever your enrollment is going to be. If I click on the student panel, I can see I have my first name, we have our last name, we have our email of our test student, and we have our last activity time. This last activity time is nice. If you have a student that just kind of bails and they haven't logged in for maybe 30 days or so, they would probably be on the candidate to be dropped from your course. Here we have late days. In HyperGrade, we have the idea of late days. Late days will extend a due date by 24 hours. It's not going to reopen really old assignment. It's just going to extend a due date by 24 hours. So if you had an assignment due on Friday, the student could use 2 late days and extend it. So the due date is now going to be on Sunday. You can customize this, of course. You can make it so they have no late days, or they can have 20 or 30 as needed. By default, every student is going to get 7. Okay, so now, how do we approve the grades? Well, if you go back to your course listing, you can click on Grades right here. In the grading console, you can see your sample student. You can see how far they've gone in the course. We only have 1 assignment, so completing 1 assignment is going to complete the entire course. And we can click on the 100% right here. The 100% is going to be the recommended grade. This grade gets generated by HyperGrade. If you see this little warning symbol next to the grade, it means that you need to approve it. So if you go in here, you can see a red bar to indicate that we haven't approved that grade yet. You can look at their code and you can say, do we have good indentation? Do we have good comments? Do we have appropriate variable names and so on? You can see the output of their program. You can see what test cases failed and what test cases passed. In this case, all of them passed, so we don't have the need to check what what is going to be a mismatch here. We can see the original question. And HyperGrade does indeed have built-in plagiarism checking. So if you had some problems with duplicate code being submitted, HyperGrade will check for that. And even if you have really similar looking code that kind of is a little bit suspicious, that's going to be marked as a flag and it's going to be shown to you as an instructor. If this looks good to you, then you can then approve the grade. We have the bar turning green over here. And once you approve it, then the student can then go back and see what they earned on this assignment. They can see that they earned full credit on this assignment. All right, so that's it. HyperGrade, very powerful tool. You can teach a lot of students with this. You can teach extra classes if needed. You can have very complex assignments broken down into multiple components. You couldn't possibly do this just manually. It would take so incredibly long to review that code and test everything. And really, as an instructor, what I would like to do is have questions that slowly increase in difficulty. Have a whole bunch of test cases, try every possible thing I can think of, to really vet this code and make sure that the student is submitting the utmost quality code. It's better for the student, it's better for you. It's going to be a much more organized way to get instant feedback to your students and to have a more complete experience in your computer programming courses. You can focus on teaching, not on the tedious work of running every single test case or every single piece of code that the student submitted. Students can get feedback at 2 in the morning, 24 hours a day. They can submit their code, they can see what's wrong, they can fix it, they can mold it, they can craft it, and your programming experience in your classroom is going to be totally different if you check out the system and kind of utilize the system in your school. Okay, what I want you to do now is I want you to send me an email. Okay, I would like to meet with you over Zoom and walk through this with you and look at your assignments and see if we can get this going in your classroom. My email address is just mike@hypergrade.com. If you just go to the homepage and scroll down, you can send me an email directly. But either way, it's going to be fine. Direct email, or you can use the support form on the website. Again, my email address is mike@hypergrade.com. Okay, I hope to hear from you very soon.